won't believe what just erupted around the Harris family. What started off as a regular day twisted into something nobody saw coming. King Harris, T.I.'s son, has always lived under the spotlight, flaunting confidence and luxury like it was second nature. Fast cars, flashy diamonds, the whole lifestyle people fantasize about. But in an instant, that glossy image cracked. King's name suddenly blasted across headlines for all the wrong reasons. He had been arrested, all because he skipped a crucial court date. Something that should have been minor snowballed into a full-blown mess. Fans were stunned. How did he end up here? They'd watched him grow up surrounded by privilege and opportunity, yet now he was tangled in trouble. With everything handed to him, money, influence, a supportive family, why was he spiraling? What pushed him into this path? But then, things took an even stranger turn. After the arrest, instead of going quiet or playing it safe, King let loose. He spoke out with raw frustration, dropping a blunt "F the police." That one line sent shockwaves. People couldn't wrap their heads around it. The confident kid, raised in comfort, was now lashing out in a way no one expected. And just when everyone thought they'd heard the worst, this situation shifted again. Behind the scenes, whispers started circulating. Witnesses claimed King wasn't his usual loud, energetic self before everything unfolded. He'd stepped away from the chaos, saying he needed space, maybe to think, maybe to reset. But that calm moment didn't last. All of a sudden, panic swept the area. Something went very wrong. Staff rushed in, alarms blaring, and before anyone understood what was happening, King was being taken to the hospital. The news hit like a punch. King Harris was in critical condition. Doctors worked urgently, but it was obvious the situation was severe. The lively, outspoken young man was now barely hanging on. When T.I. and Tiny heard, they raced to the hospital, terrified. They found their son pale, unconscious, hooked up to machines. It was heartbreaking, a nightmare neither of them ever imagined. T.I., who had weathered every kind of industry storm, was shaken to his core. Tiny stood helpless, watching her child fight for his life. Their world, once full of glamour and confidence, felt like it was collapsing. But the story kept getting darker. Quiet murmurs began circulating. Rumors that King's condition wasn't just some random medical emergency. What if it wasn't an accident at all? What if someone had actually intended for this to happen? The questions spread fast, and with no clear answers from officials, suspicion grew. T.I. and Tiny demanded explanations. They reached out to everyone who should have known what happened, but every time they asked, they hit a wall. Silence, shrugs, no information. It didn't add up, and T.I.'s frustration only grew stronger. Then came the twist no one expected. A voice note leaked, shaky, nervous, from a nurse who clearly feared speaking out. Her message dropped a bombshell. This wasn't random. Someone wanted King gone. That single revelation changed everything. Suddenly, the entire situation felt bigger, darker, and far more intentional than anyone thought. T.I., already shattered by his son's condition, now faced the terrifying possibility that this wasn't just misfortune. It was a targeted act. And with that leak, the mystery around what truly happened to King Harris only deepened. The family was desperate for clarity, and time was slicking away. News about King Harris's condition spread like wildfire. Fans, friends, and even strangers flooded timelines with prayers, hashtags, and emotional messages. Outside the hospital, crowds gathered with candles and posters, hoping for a miracle. But behind those walls, the truth was far messier than anyone imagined. T.I. and Tiny, shattered by their son's condition, couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that something was off. The room wasn't just heavy with fear for King's life, it carried an edge of something darker. As they stood over their son, tense and helpless, whispers about what really happened began circling. What everyone assumed was a freak moment now felt deliberately twisted. People wondered if King had stumbled into something dangerous, something he never should have been near. And the more T.I. and Tiny dug, the more it became obvious nothing lined up. The authorities' silence spoke louder than words. No explanations, no details, just a wall of emptiness. Then came the moment that chilled T.I. to his core. He learned that the facility's surveillance system malfunctioned the night King collapsed. Every camera, every feed, gone. How could that happen at the exact moment everything went wrong? Why was the only possible evidence wiped clean? T.I. felt like the walls were closing in. The hospital felt less like a place of healing and more like a battlefield. With each hour, the confusion grew, and answers stayed locked away. And T.I. wasn't the only one pushing back. People on the outside started speaking up too, faint murmurs about what really went down behind those doors. Whispers T.I. couldn't ignore. Someone knew something. Someone was covering tracks. Then, right when things felt like they couldn't twist any further, T.I. got a call that changed everything. A lawyer reached out, saying someone had come forward, someone terrified but willing to talk. Their message was blunt. This wasn't random. Someone ensured it happened. T.I.'s heart stopped. If this was planned, who was behind it? The lawyer didn't have the full picture, but one thing was clear. Whoever orchestrated this wasn't acting alone. They had connections, protection, and power, and they were determined to keep the truth buried. And the more T.I. thought about it, the more the gravity hit him. This wasn't just about King. Everything they'd built, their reputation, career, family, was dangling over a cliff. This wasn't one isolated incident. This felt like part of something bigger, something no one wanted exposed. But outside, something unexpected happened. Ordinary people started rising up. Social media exploded. Justice for King hashtags dominated every platform. Fans, celebrities, influencers, even people who never knew the family were demanding answers. A wave of unity formed, a pushback against the silence. Tiny, exhausted, and drained, couldn't simply accept it. She only wanted her son to open his eyes again. She didn't care about rumors or headlines anymore. None of it mattered compared to King breathing on his own again. But deep down, she knew something was terribly off. Too many gaps, too many convenient coincidences. As days passed, the story grew louder. Journalists started digging deeper, pulling threads that led to hidden corners no one had looked at before. The biggest question? What really happened that night? Something was clearly wrong, but no one could pinpoint it. And the deeper the investigation went, the more people sensed a pattern, a hidden connection nobody was ready to face. And T.I. felt it too. This wasn't just his family's nightmare. This felt like part of a much larger, darker puzzle. He didn't have the answers yet, but one thing was certain. Someone didn't want the truth coming out. And he wasn't stopping until he uncovered every piece. Inside the hospital, tension grew thicker by the day. Crowds outside kept pushing, chanting, posting, not just for King's recovery, but for justice. People were convinced this wasn't some tragic coincidence. Too much didn't add up. Too many shadows hovered over the story. And as the whispers grew louder, T.I. and Tiny clung to every sliver of hope. Doctors warned them that King's condition was fragile, that the odds weren't great, but there was that tiny chance, that small spark they refused to let die.
The vanishing surveillance video had already been odd, but what T uncovered next was even worse. That so-called malfunction didn't look like an accident at all. It seemed like someone had deliberately wiped the footage clean. Nobody would admit it, but the way everything lined up was way too organized. Someone was hiding something. But who? And why would they go this far? Then came the call that shifted everything. A shaky voice reached out with an urgency that T couldn't ignore. They claimed to know exactly what happened in the hours before King collapsed. According to them, King had stumbled onto something he was never supposed to see. What was once framed as a misunderstanding now looked like a calculated move. It wasn't just about King's actions, it was about what he discovered, the kind of thing powerful people don't want exposed. There were whispers about deals hidden from the public, secrets buried deep, and forces moving behind the scenes. King had unknowingly become a threat, someone who could unravel something massive. T's stomach twisted as he listened. Could someone have gone after his son just to shut him up? He didn't have hard proof yet, but the puzzle pieces were starting to lock together in a way that terrified him. Meanwhile, the world outside wasn't staying quiet anymore. T and Tiny weren't the only ones demanding answers. The public caught on, and suddenly hashtags like Justice for King exploded everywhere. People with no personal ties to the Harris family were calling for transparency. The world was watching, and no one wanted this story swept under the rug. As the attention grew, a major heavyweight in hip-hop reached out to T. The call blindsided him, but he listened. They had heard unsettling rumors drifting through the industry, rumors about a network of people not just inside the facility, but far beyond it. According to them, this wasn't random at all. It was a warning, and King had unknowingly stepped right into the middle of it. The more T thought about it, the more the situation reminded him of old enemies and past grudges. Fame had given them a beautiful life, but it had also created shadows, people lurking in silence. Was this their opportunity to strike? Tiny, on the other hand, was barely holding herself together. Every hour, sitting beside her son pushed her closer to breaking. She had never imagined their family would get entangled in something like this, her child's life hanging on a thread while lies, secrets, and hidden motives swirled around them. It wasn't just the heartbreak of seeing her son hooked up to machines. It was the sickening realization that whoever was responsible might walk away untouched. As the days crawled by, T felt more trapped than ever. His son's life was slipping through his fingers, and he had no control. But this wasn't just about King anymore. It was about exposing the truth. If he didn't fight back, nothing would ever be revealed. Yet the problem was bigger than one family. There was a system working overtime to silence them. The tension in the hospital finally reached a point where it felt suffocating. T and Tiny stayed at the King's side, desperate for any sign of improvement. Doctors warned them his situation was fragile, that the chance of recovery was slim. Time wasn't on their side. Then, out of nowhere, a flicker of hope. King's vitals steadied, just for a moment. It sent a rush of relief through the entire room. Outside, the supporters erupted in cheers, hugging, and crying, convinced this was the breakthrough they'd prayed for. But just as fast as the hope appeared, it faded. King's condition crashed again, heavier than before. Uncertainty hung in the air like a storm cloud. And that's when T broke. The weight of fear, anger, and helplessness crashed over him. He couldn't bottle it up anymore. "I don't care about justice, I just want my boy to live," he cried out, his voice cracking. Millions felt that moment deep in their chest. It wasn't just grief, it was a father begging the world to spare his child. But beneath his words, there was something else. Something that hinted he already knew this was bigger than any courtroom. Then came the final blow. A trembling nurse leaked a voice note to the media. Her words were barely above a whisper, but they hit with the force of an explosion. This wasn't random. Someone wanted him gone. And just like that, everything changed. No one knew who was behind it yet, but it was clear King didn't end up in that hospital by accident. Someone planned it, and someone was doing everything in their power to bury the truth. The rumors were spreading like wildfire, and suddenly T's worst fears didn't feel like paranoia anymore. They were starting to look real. King wasn't just some innocent kid caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. He had stumbled onto something far bigger than anyone imagined, and now it was becoming painfully clear. His life was in danger because of the secrets he uncovered. Secrets so heavy, so explosive, someone was willing to go to extreme lengths to shut him up. And the deeper T dug, the more unsettling everything became. The people involved weren't just random names floating in the streets. They were connected, part of a network with reach, power, and a long history of making inconvenient truths disappear. T and Tiny's search for answers wasn't just about figuring out who hurt their son. It had turned into a mission to expose a system that had been hiding behind closed doors for years. Each new detail showed they weren't just fighting a couple of corrupt people. They were battling an entire machine with the power to bury this forever. The frustration was unreal. T.I. knew that whatever happened to King, this battle wasn't just about one boy anymore. It was about blowing the lid off a broken system and making sure no other family had to suffer in silence. Meanwhile, the public was fed up. What started as one family's nightmare had turned into a citywide demand for justice. People were speaking up, demanding answers. Fans, strangers, even celebrities. Everyone was rallying behind King. What started as support had grown into a full-blown movement demanding transparency and accountability. Atlanta streets were buzzing with emotion, chants rising, signs waving, people praying, demanding the truth no matter the cost. But as the outcry got louder, something darker crept in. Whispers started circling that this wasn't just a tragedy, it might be revenge. People began wondering if someone was sending T.I. a message by going after the one person he'd died to protect. T.I. had old enemies, old disputes, and suddenly the theory didn't sound so far-fetched. Could King have been targeted because of his father's past? The more he heard, the more he realized nobody could have predicted how deep this ran. The situation had spiraled beyond anything they imagined. And now the fight wasn't just emotional, it was survival.
T was already on edge, and now he found himself with a choice: either expose the truth soon or risk losing everything that mattered. The world's eyes were locked on him. Pressure was building. And then the twist came. Out of nowhere, a chilling anonymous post appeared online. Just one line: "The sins of the father fall on the son." It was short, cryptic, but it hit like a lightning strike. Was this a warning? A threat? Or the first sign that the real players behind all this were finally stepping into the light? T, already pushed to the brink, knew this message changed everything. What once looked like a tragic accident was now shaping into something cold, calculated, and personal. And with that, the fight wasn't just for King anymore. It was for the truth, the whole truth, no matter who it exposed. Atlanta held its breath, waiting for answers, knowing the battle was far from finished. T.I. wasn't backing down. Not now, not ever. As long as he was alive, he was going to drag the truth out into the open. Because this story, it wasn't done. The city wouldn't let it be. And the fight for King Harris, for justice, for truth, was only getting louder.